to the cloud. Yeah, I was trying to place because I've always kind of known you from a distance, and I think it was through Pittsburgh State because you were working. It was either Ernie Williamson or
It was Palin. I was the repair guy at Palin for 6 months,
okay.
and played in that group with Kelly O'Brien, Jeff Hodap, and Doug for a little while.
Yeah, I have not heard the name Kelly O'Brien in a long time.
Every time I do, there's usually some cursing from somebody out there in the world about that. So yeah, I try not to mention it too much anymore.
You know, as a young tuba player, when I knew him, he was such a nice guy to me. He was never rude. And I don't know what he's doing now, but I think he might still be in the Branson area with his wife because I think she was a band director over there. But
right.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's how I knew you because I remember Doug played in that group once or twice. But
yeah, and I used to play over in the summer band I played in the summer band with Jeff Fuchs for a while. Or not, is it Jeff? No, Jeff's the one in North Carolina. Craig's the one in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I didn't realize that those two were related until very recently. So
yeah, and you know, the little shuttle company that my friend and I were running while I was in my doctoral program, it's basically non-existent because of COVID now. But his sister started using us, and we didn't really know at first. And my business partner was like, "Yeah, I went to Pittsburgh State and I majored in music." And she was like, "Do you know Craig Fuchs?" And she was like, "Of course." She's like, "Oh, that's my brother." And I was like, oh, "What a small world."
yeah. Yeah. I saw the two of those people together golfing. I'm like, oh crap, you two are related, man. I didn't realize that at first. Like my world's colliding here, So
yeah. Okay. All right. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
You're fine. This is far more exciting than setting up repair part SKUs and stuff like I do all day. So you're good.
So basically, I'm just people that I'm trying to get at least 5 to 7, maybe 8 people that will just talk to me about commissioning processes. So I just kind of have like a standard, I'm going to start out. How did you know Barbara York? Explain who you are, how that came about, and your relationship with Barbara.
Cool. So my name is Andy Smith. I'm currently the product manager of repair parts and Tuba Euphonium at Conselmer in Elkhart, Indiana. But before this, I was kind of done a little of everything in the music community. I was a college professor at Campbell University for 5 years and other places before that, and freelancing, teaching, kind of like how we all do the, multi-income streams and that sort of stuff. So Barbara York first appeared to me probably, I would guess, my memory is correct, somewhere in the 2006, 2007 timeframe, because I had heard the concerto that she had written at that point, and I started to reach out to find out more about who that was, because at Eastman, when I was there doing my master's, where was a concerto competition, and we all had to play the Barbara York, and whoever played it the best got to solo with one of the ensembles there. And I had known some about Barbara before that, but that was kind of the first like real deep dive, like who is this woman? Like emails, correspondences, learning some more about each other, then getting the connection that, oh, she's moved to Pittsburgh where I used to be, and like doing all this stuff, kind of led hand in hand into that. So that relationship went from like not knowing someone to being someone's friend in about 2 weeks of conversations via email and a couple of phone calls back and forth. So, and then I'll let you go because I got more, but I don't know.
Okay. You can just freely talk, actually. So cool. Keep going.
Cool. So out of that friendship and starting to converse so I got wind that she had done this suite for tuba, euphonium, and piano, Brian Dowdy was going to publish, and Brian is a really good friend of mine. We have a lot of close connections. He's another Ithaca grad like I am. And Brian said, I'm trying to get her to rearrange this also as a suite for tuba, French horn, and piano. And I said, hey, you know, my fiance is a French horn player. I think that'd be really cool if she did that. And that was enough motivation for Barbara to redo it. And so
I did not know this.
yeah, so in I guess it would have been February or March of 2008, Eastman used to hold this Women in Music Festival where they would have a whole bunch of concerts and they'd bring in some famous artists and some other people, and they would and composers and stuff like that that they would bring in, and they would do these week long of women music, whether you know it's composed by, most of it was at least composed by, if not performed by, all female groups, or you know some semblance of that. It was a real big push for gender equality in the music community, and Barbara's piece got selected to be performed at this, which from what I gather from the knowledge there was one of the first times that a tuba piece had been selected to be on this Women in Music Festival. And she didn't ask for anything for us doing that. It was solely out of her just, yep, sure, done. You know, her love of wanting to do it, that she did it.
Yeah.
And it was a real interesting thing because, you know, I mean, you've been in the conservatory world for a while now. You kind of understand that, like, you know, there's a high art form that they believe that every piece of music should be, you know, that it's got to have some sophistication and some, you know, of those things. And Barbara's music is wonderful, but it's not that. It's not highfalutin, you know, esoteric things that make you think and ponder. You know, it's beautiful. It's melodic. It has tunes that you're going to come away humming and things that will be stuck in your head for a long time. And that's the joy and the benefit of it. And so I remember in preparation for this that we had to do some coachings with a few of the, like the collaborative pianist faculty and a couple other people that wanted to hear it. And the conversation from the highfalutin artist at Eastman was, this thing seems kind of, you know, a little too like normal for this kind of Women in Music Festival. And like, why are we doing this? And, you know, it seems like this accompaniment was not meant to be challenging to the pianist. I'm like, it's not what her art form is about. And I tried to explain that to people, and they kind of looked at me strangely. But the tuba, you know, Don Harry, the tuba professor, and Peter Kirau, who is the French horn professor, they were like, this thing is great. I mean, it's melodical. It's, you know, yeah, it's challenging, but it's not, you know, not to a point that most people can't play it. It's a good, unique combination of instruments that you don't see very often. Like, this thing's fantastic. Like, why are we not celebrating this? So it was an interesting, like, build up to this concert. And then at the concert, when it was played, I remember vividly the stuff before it and the stuff after it did not get the same amount of applause from the audience as the Barbara York thing. And it's funny that, you know, the highfalutin artistic endeavor of a music school would not remember that, like, lyricism, beauty, and melodic lines are important because that's what people care about.
Yeah. That was a lot of information that I had never heard before. So this is good.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the basis of how everything gets to where the Through the Tunnel starts. That's why it was so personal for her as well as it was for me, because you know, as you know, my fiance died in April, not too long after that performance, in a car accident. And you know, Brian and I talked immediately. It was like, we got to do some sort of musical tribute here, don't we? We got to do something, right? So there was kind of two avenues that came up. One of them failed immediately. The other one was get a tuba piece published, commissioned and published. And it's funny because I asked Barbara at first, and she said no. She says, I'm just too heartbroken by this for you. Like, I can't do this right now. So there's another piece that I commissioned by James Woodward. It's called Three Reflections. And that's far more of a personal, like, the melody used in one spot's Gretchen's name spelled out, my fiance's name spelled out. There's a bunch of horn calls used in it. There's a lot of like open kind of fifths and harmonic things, but it's very James Woodward-esque, you know, kind of writing. And it's never been published. I mean, it's been published, but it's never been recorded. It's never been put out there. And I thought, oh, okay, so that's it. There's the thing. And there was no background put in there intentionally, just kind of vagueness, like Andy Smith in memory of his fiancee Gretchen. And then, like 4 months after that process has started, Barbara calls me up and says, I think I'm ready to write you something. And I don't want you to commission me to do this. I want to do this as a thank you to me. So that's where the Through the Tunnel came from, was she wanted to do this as a gift. But the difference was that piece, so the Woodward is very, like I said, it's very Gretchen specific. It was very much built to be somewhat of a, like, in the moment of like this, and it has like the excitement of life followed by a tragedy, sadness, and then a reflection kind of piece at the end of it. Where Barbara's thought process was, I want to, because in this whole process, Barbara's calling me, how you doing? Are you okay? You know, when are you going to go out and get laid again? I mean, like, these are some of the questions that she's asking me, you know, you know, have you met anyone? Are you trying to like pick your pieces up and move on? And that's the dialogue that starts the Through the Tunnel portion of this, was that it was meant to be a piece of anyone going through tragedy could find themselves somewhere along the journey in this tunnel of loss. You know, the happiness, the anger that's in there, the kind of like reflective beauty that's the end of it, that almost sounds like it's Schumann lieder in it.
Yes. 94 to the end is, I think, some of her best writing.
I agree. I think it's really, really fantastic. And you know, every time I play that or think about it, I start tearing up. And it's been, you know, like 11 years, 12 years, something like that. I don't even keep track anymore. I try not to at this point. But
Okay.
but yeah, you're right. I mean, it is really powerful writing, and just the way that she came across doing it. And that was completely of her own free will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, because my next question is, why did you choose her for the commission? So I guess you had originally reached out to her. So why was it that you had originally reached out to her, even though that, she didn't, it's not a traditional type of commission.
Mm-hmm.
Why was it that you had chose Barbara?
Well, I had heard enough of, like, I had kind of done some digging around after hearing the concerto and hearing the suite, you know, and I had heard, I think the tuba quartet was out at that point, if my memory's correct. That I'm trying to remember, because like these things all just kind of merge when you get older at some point, that you start remembering timelines as well as I wish I did.
Yeah. I don't think that any, I think the only chamber piece for low brass at that point was the suite.
Okay.
Um, the I know which one you're talking about. I can't. The
The
name is.
PC quartet, is that right? I'm like the
Oh, okay. I forget about that one. So, yes, that was already out.
right.
Okay.
So I had heard I had heard that as well. Um, I think that was at the Nerd Tech at the Coast Guard Academy. And I had done some looking at some other stuff. Like I had said to Brian, like, hey, what else you got Barbara York? You know, what else do you know that she has in the collection of her music? And so I started looking into more of it. And like, I just like, Barbara captures everything that I think that the tuba repertoire since 1970 doesn't have in it anymore. Like, we've got a lot of really great esoteric, weird stuff that audiences just don't want to listen to. You know, like, it's great to sit down and listen to, you know, hear somebody play the Kraft or the Penderecki or Um, you know, some of like I like James Grant's music a lot, but you know, like audiences don't want to sit down and listen to that stuff regularly, right? You got to balance programs out with that. And I get so tired of hearing people play transcriptions. Like I just wish you would put your money where your mouth is and like do something to push our art form forward, like Harvey always taught us to do. You know, because I think if we did that, you know, the tuba might be in a better place in the general classical music population, literature, all that sort of stuff. So when I see somebody that's writing like lyrical things with clear melodies that I can follow tonal structures and like, you know, I can listen to an accompaniment and go, I can hear a story that goes along with this. I'm grabbed. I was like immediately, because I'm always looking for more of that that doesn't say, you know, arranged by, transcription by. I mean, it's important that we do that too, but like that's a big void in the literature of tuba music, is that a lot of people just don't want to write like that, you know. So when she started doing that, I jumped on board with it because you didn't see a lot of people writing in that style at that point, and you still don't.
Yeah, very true.
Yep.
Very, very true. Um, so this one is kind of personal.
Sure.
Um, Barbara talked a lot. I don't know if I've told you this, but Gail Robertson, Travis Scott, and myself did a series of interviews last summer, right before she passed, not knowing that it was going to be that soon. We thought that we had another year or so, or two. And my original project was my fiance is a baritone, and we were going to commission a piece for tuba and uh, male voice, and I think piano. We had written letters to Barbara saying, you know, this is what Topher is to me and kind of our story, and he
Mhm.
wrote to her. We've never read each other's, and I was going to record that and then a bunch of others, you know, like a handful of stuff. And that just couldn't happen. So the project has had to switch pretty fast. So I obviously I'm building this website, and I'm not overly great at it, but it's a good resource. So now when it's published after I pass, barbieyork.com will exist, and you'll be able to
Awesome.
find biographical information. I'm doing annotations for all of her low brass pieces. So Brian has been wonderful. Like I have all of her tuba pieces, and then I should, as of today or tomorrow, have all of her euphonium and chamber stuff. And I'm just going through putting, you know, range, difficulty levels, any program notes that might exist. If someone will talk to me if there's not program notes, links to good performances. And then my committee wanted me to do some recording. So I'm recording directions, the second sonata, elegy, uh, three romances, and sea dreams. There's not a recording of sea dreams anywhere, which blows my mind. If,
Yeah, I
if
don't.
if there is, then it's probably Mike Fisher. And I found Mike Fisher. Um, People have not been able to find him for a long time.
Wow,
And
you found him. That's awesome.
awesome. Well, I was talking to Brian when I was ordering a bunch of music, and he's like, "Oh, I just talked to him yesterday." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I just talked to him yesterday," and I was like, "No shit." So, um, he said that he was willing to answer some questions. So I typed up 5 or 6 questions that I need to finish. You know, I have the end of the project. I have the bulk of the middle. I don't have the very first 4 pieces or his experience.
Right.
Um, and I really would like that because I think that her story deserves that. I sent the questions about 3 weeks ago and I haven't heard from him, so I'm hoping that he goes ahead and follows through. But in these interviews, Barbara talks about how Brian was joking around with her around the time that she wrote this. Most of the pieces in that time were about death, and so he called her the death composer. Uh, and she talked a little bit about how some of the commissioners or people that she had written for had like almost were like healed. So my question is, how did the piece help you in your loss? Did it heal you? Did it make you relive trauma? You don't have to go too personal, but just whatever you'd like.
So, ooh, so that's a tough one. Just because I don't think you ever really heal from some of this kind of stuff. I think that that's like, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
So I premiered that in the fall of 2009 at the first thing I ever played at UNCG when I started my doctorate. And I was super excited because I'm like, here's this new cool thing that somebody's written. I think it's going to be great, And Dennis was very much like, I don't think you should tell anyone the story behind this. Like, I don't think you should come on stage and say, hey, this piece is a commission for my dead ex-fiance that just died last year when I was at Eastman. And, here I am, take me or leave me as it is, This is, he was like, I think that this moment needs to be about you, Barbara, the pianist on stage, and Gretchen. That's it. So it was really, really weird to me that I was like, I'm ready to like pull my chest off and like bare my soul about this. And it was like, you're not doing any of that. I think that was probably the right decision because I remember at the end of that, playing that 94 to the end with tears streaming down my face. Like, I didn't know how the heck I got through it without like bawling into the fetal position. So it was very therapeutic, but it was also very not what I thought it was going to be originally. The real transformation of that was when Stephanie Fry Clark decided to record it, and puts a decent amount. I mean, she don't tell everything because I asked her not to at the time, because partially because I didn't want to share everything at that point, but also partially like I had planned on doing this as a recording project of my own before I decided to leave academia and professional tuba playing at the level I was. So like that was pretty powerful for me playing it. Then I fast forward a little bit, she's recording it. That brings more like, holy crap, what's going on here? Like, people are going to know about this. And then I start seeing other people playing it. And then I went to a conference, and I guess that was a Southeast Regional after Stephanie moved to Tennessee. And she plays this thing, and Barbara's in the audience, and I'm in the audience, and I'm like, holy crap, what, like, and my friends are like, you going to go to this thing, man? Do you think you can like be here? And I'm like, I have to. I kind of have to go. Like, I wanted to be brave and just like, oh yeah, I can sit through this and this is going to be fine. Like, I'm tough now. I can get, and I like 3 notes in, I'm already stiff with, like, and I see Barbara like kind of run over and park herself next to me. And like the whole time just sitting there, and she didn't say a word. She didn't say anything else. She just sat there. And when Stephanie got done, I'm like a wreck like I am now, probably worse. And she's just, I stood up and gave her the ovation, and nobody else did. And I didn't care, because to me, that's like the goal of anything, is to see it, I mean, to have somebody else play it, record it, and then go play it somewhere afterwards. Like, that's not just filler on an album. It's not something that they just did because, well, it hasn't been recorded yet, so I'll check that one off the box and make myself look good. Like, it had a personal connection in some way to Stephanie. I don't know what that is, because I've never talked to her in that detail about it. but I certainly did thank her and bought her a few beers afterwards for her doing that.
Yeah, she has a lovely recording. That's I think there's a handful on YouTube that, you know, they're decent recordings. But hers is good.
Yeah,
It's
it's the closest to what I would do with it, and
yeah.
maybe I will do this at some point in the near future. I don't know.
Yeah, I have actually never played this, which is surprising. She kept trying to get me to play the first sonata and this when I was at Pittsburgh State, and Doug, I can't remember if it was Doug, but someone was like, "You need to do one of her pieces per recital," and I think I did 2 or 3 recitals in my masters, and I chose a couple of the other pieces. And I wish that I would have done this at some point in my doctorate, but I just kind of put it on the back burner. But I do one of her pieces. I just said do. Um, I do one of her pieces every recital. But it's it's really good. I hope that there is a renaissance with some of her older pieces, and some of her brand new. Like Josh Culkin has a piece that I believe that he was the last one that she wrote for tuba. I know that he wasn't the last piece. Um, Funny story. I'm not sure. Do you know Mike Fisher? Like, do you know that story? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit, not much of it, but I know some.
Okay. So when I interviewed Josh about a week ago, and uh, the very first piece was Sea Dreams that Barbara asked Mike, "Hey, can I write something for you?" You know, because he had came back to Pittsburgh State and did a recital, and he said, "Can you have it ready in for 2 months and something kind of for a children's concert?" And she said, "Sure." So she wrote Sea Dreams, and then he wound up commissioning 3 more. Um, and Josh is one of Mike's students.
Right.
And the last piece, I think I can't, like, I need to sit down and ask Brian some questions, but I really think that the last piece was nautical myths and legends for Josh Culkin, Mike Fisher's student. It was about sea things, so it was like that. It's kind of strange, but um, it's very cool as well. And then Tennessee Journey for Chris Combest,
Right.
the other one. Um, I know she was in the process of writing something for, I think it was Gail and Deanna.
Mm-hmm.
Something for, I think it was Danny Rowland, and then me. And there might have been one other in there, but I never knew who it was. So yeah. All right.
That's
I could
cool.
I could talk all day.
No, that's fine. Keep going, because I mean, I saw Barbara at the International Women's Brass Conference in 2019. Was that right? In
Right,
Arizona State.
right before she got bad.
Yeah, and she kind of hinted that like she told me that, like, hey, this is starting, like, I think this is the last conference I'm going to attend. And I was like, what? Like, what's going on? And so we talked a little about that. In the interesting thing was she seemed so at peace with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't it was weird. Like, I mean, that she was okay. She was happy. She didn't want to talk about it in depth. She didn't want to get into the inner workings of it all. She's just like, I think this is probably near the end.
Yeah. In the interviews, the very first one that we did, it came up almost immediately. And she said, my mom used to say that everybody's got something, and this is what I've got. And she was, she said, I wish that I had more time, and I wish that it wouldn't have been this way, but everybody's got something. And I'm like, you were so right.
Right.
um, I've had very few bad things happen to me in my life, but my dad has Parkinson's, and it's pretty serious at this point.
Mm-hmm.
My mom has had to deal with some hip issues. She takes care of dad. My oldest sister is a meth addict. My parents raised 2 out of the 4 of her children, and my middle sister just passed away about 5 weeks before Barbara. So I'm getting to a point where I'm mostly functioning from my sister. Um, so I haven't even really had a chance to process losing Barbara.
Right.
And there's been times in this that I just break down because I'm like, I, I haven't, for the first 3 months after she died, I didn't cry because I couldn't cry anymore because my sister had just died.
Right.
And it felt funny and silly to mourn, this person when this person had just passed. And towards the um I had talked with my fiance. I was like, Topher, what would you think about, instead of doing a piece for you and I, if I asked Barbara to make the subject about my sister? Um, and he was in total agreement with it. And I had finally saved up enough money, and I was going to call her, and I was going to say, hey, Barbara, can we change the subject? And it just, it was the last month, so.
Right.
But yeah, I can't remember what I was talking about.
It's all good. It's good to just that, like, just to share stories about stuff too. I mean, like that, like for me, one of my biggest thrills in all of this was at the I Tech at IU. Don Harry did a recital of all Barbara's music.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's I mean, that says something to me right there, that, Don was moved by a bunch of this stuff enough that Don picks up the torch and starts playing this. And Barbara was accompanying him. And she came up to me, she goes, I want you to turn pages for this. I'm like, Barbara, I don't turn pages. I had never turned a page in my life on no concert. Um, and she's like, it's got to be you. It can't be anyone else. Mm-hmm. This has got your. She's like, this is fate. She's like, as Barbara did, Andy, this is just fucking fate. It's fate. It's your old teacher. You're here. I'm here. You got to be on stage, and we got to do this. Like, okay, sure. Like not only the pressure of like being on an iTech and doing that sort of thing, but I got to turn pages with Don out in front. If I screw anything up, that's going to be a nightmare at the end.
That's how I met Barbara, was turning pages. We were in Manhattan, Kansas, not New York.
Yeah, at the Little Apple. Yep.
Yeah, Steve was hosting. It was probably 2007, 2008. It was a regional conference, and Doug was like, "Hey, you're gonna turn pages for this lady. I volunteered you." And I was like, "Okay." And it was Barbara York, and I had no idea who she was. And I soon found out that that woman could play the damn piano very well. And I was like, man, you're really good. I was like, I've never heard anyone play the piano like this up close. And she was like, oh yeah, you're just turn whenever I nod. And I was like, okay. And I will never forget, I'm sitting there and I'm doing a great job. I've turned for like 2 or 3 recitals. I turn the page and it's just completely blank. And I'm like, oh my God. And she like didn't miss a beat. She forgot to tape the pages. And she apologized to me. She was like, I'm so sorry for scaring you like that. And I'm like, hey, you know what? That's how I met Barbara, was getting volunteered to turn pages. And then anytime I was anywhere that she was, like if there was a recital at Pittsburgh, say, hey, can you come turn for this? I need a good turner.
She didn't get scared by anything, because like she and I did she played as my accompanist at the regional that y'all had at Pittsburgh that Doug did at Pitt State. Mm-hmm. And I remember vividly because there was like only one way in or out of the hall that we were in. And like there was somebody that played before me, I forget who it was, and I'm in the backstage room, and like as soon as he finishes up, I'm watching like every single big name person. Like there goes Tom Stein, there goes Scott Watson, there's Mark Norman walking out, there's John Manning walking out. Like there's like and I'm backstage and I walk in the room and I'm like, I'm sitting back there. I'm like, these mother blankers, I can't blank it. I'm leaving because it's stupid. Because at this point, I had become the Conselmer parts manager. It's my first go around here. And Barbara's like, are you okay? I'm like, look at all these blankety blank mother blankers that just walking out of the freaking room. And I'm not like, they're going to pay for this. And so she's like, what do you mean? I said, the first thing's unaccompanied. Come in the hall and watch and you'll see what happens. And I sat down and I played the Grant Furies and I played the Woodward, the three reflections, because the York had a lot of traction and I was trying to help James out a little bit. And I played the first movement of the Furies and she looked at me and she's like, oh, nobody should have gotten you angry today. And afterwards she gets done and she's like, that really focused. I said, I don't know what happened, but that was great. Like that, I've never been in like, that's one of two performances that I always look back and go like, that's the zone where like anything that you could have thrown at me, it wouldn't have been a problem. And she, and she was just like, she was just shocked at first that I was so angry. And then she figured out, she's like, oh, you're like you got a little spite in you, and she said some stuff to me like that. But what was really funny is that the couple of like Jamie Lipton and a few others from the area stuck in there and they came out and go, that's the best thing that was at this entire conference. And it's a shame that all those idiots missed it.
Yeah.
Because you're just a parts guy at Conselmer now. You don't. And so it's just because it was par for the course, like Barbara and I always said, like, well, we're never going to get anywhere with this stuff because you're just right that accompaniments that look like what middle school piano choir pieces accompaniments look like, and I just I am who I am, no faults about it.
Yeah,
it's just good times. It was always good times with Barbara, good music and good times, and never anger on it. It was just fun, just a funny.
I don't remember a lot about that conference because that was the semester that I dropped out of college for a while, which turned out being something that I needed to do. I remember playing with the quartet. We did a parody of the Lady Gaga saga that some bassoons had done, and one of my friends was like, will you do this with a tuba quartet? And I was like, sure. So we played it for something, and we wore wigs and had pop cans on our hair. It was that. And that's all I really remember. I remember like we had never played in the basement of the student center, and we thought it was so cool that we got to. And I'm like, well, it took a freaking tuba competition to do it, but I don't remember a lot about that. And now I don't know if you've been back to Pittsburgh, but the facilities, oh my gosh, they're incredible.
Awesome.
I think the mail is getting delivered. So you've kind of answered both of these already.
Sure.
So is there anything else that you want? Hang on.
You're good.
Hey, zip it. Okay. So is there anything else that you think people should know that are going to be performing this that you want them to know? Is there anything that you haven't said that you want to iterate? And then also, you kind of have already answered this in a roundabout way, but what do you think Barbara York's legacy is?
So first, I would say to anybody like, if you're struggling to figure out a way to like express yourself through challenging times where there's like, I think this doesn't just work as a grief piece. I think it's got a lot of elements of like a depression kind of like overcoming, like any kind of struggle that you're trying to like push through. I think this work could be therapeutic for people in that manner. I think I really wish it'd get some more traction in the world. But like one of the things that I really hope that comes to light from all of this is that I really hope that Barbara's legacy becomes that we give her the respect that we should as tuba artists, tuba professors, and tuba performers, and euphonium performers, and such. And that the big thing is that there'll be I just this music, all of it needs to still be played. It should still be played because you know we as low brass people have to remember that like our instrument has a gigantic stereotype against it that's not going away by commissioning esoteric. And don't get me wrong, I've commissioned some esoteric weird things for my own benefit as well, but like your audience base doesn't care to listen to that, and you as a musician are not going to get judged at how well you can play esoteric stuff or stuff that's so technically ranged, articulation, whatever else demanding, that it's just above and beyond what people in your audience can listen to. And I think that one of the things that Barbara's music is really great at, especially this piece, is it gives you, the performer, something to work on and showcase in a context that the audience can get behind you and enjoy. That it's not, yes, it's challenging. Yes, there's things that are difficult. Yes, there's collaborative issues that have got to be worked on. Yes, there's certain things that are not expressed in that page that you can really pull out of that music. And those are all skills that every tuba player and euphonium player that you listen to that aren't your top 1% that's out there could do a better job of. And don't think of this as like, well, I'm fulfilling my Barbara York quota because I'm gonna, like, it's not that, I mean, we've kind of done that with some of these other, like, I don't compare musical styles in this way, but I'd compare it in the sense of Alec Wilder, right? There's a ton of really great music that Alec Wilder wrote for the tuba. Sure, there's the Effie suite, but there's the other four suites. There's the Song for Carol. There's the Convalescence suite. There's there's more stuff that we don't even look at that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. But we've pigeonholed it, right? It's this, well, Alec Wilder just did this thing, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want 20, 10, 15, 20 years from now for us to go, Barbara York was just this little tiny man. Like, that stuff's important. The music's important because in a time period where look at what people were who they were commissioning and who they were asking for commissions and who was saying no. You have a living, breathing human being that says yes, delivers great music, and was fun to work with on stuff. Because whatever you wanted it to be, great, I'll help you with it. Heck, even if you didn't know what you wanted it to be. I mean, I didn't know what the heck I wanted when she wrote that. But she said to me, like, I think I'm going to write this because you're in the midst of going through your grief. You're not, like, this doesn't need to be a celebration of Gretchen. It needs to be an understanding of grieving and what that means to people. And I was like, yes, done. Sign me up. It sounds great. I mean, what am I going to say? No on a free piece? Are you kidding me? Come on now. Like, but like the fact that she had the wherewithal to just say, I think this is what the world of music needs right now. And I hope we don't lose that. I just, like, with you doing this stuff that you're doing, you are not going to let that happen. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I hope is that every tuba player that's like younger than us and every teacher reads this thing, follows along with it and keeps going.
Yeah. It's funny that you said Alec Wilder because Mike Fisher told her at the very beginning that you might be the next Alec Wilder.
Right, but what do like? Okay, you've been through. You're almost done with 3 degrees of tuba euphonium degrees, right?
Yeah,
How much Alec Wilder have you played?
one or two. I definitely
Right,
did the FE suite. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
The rite of passage is the Effie suite. You know, do you know of the song for Carol?
Yes, I is that the one with tuba and horn?
No,
No. Okay.
no. So, song for Carol is like a minute and 30 minute 45-second little thing that he wrote for Harvey's wife.
Okay. I didn't know.
And it's on the ITEA Legacy album that they did of all those old Harvey recordings that they like remastered and did. That's gold. Like you listen to that, like that's gold, man. I mean, like if you ever wanted like a snippet way of like showing someone that you love them, play that for them. Like just play it. But it's gold. It's a minute and a half. Nobody plays it. Nobody ever plays it. It's Effie Sweeter. We're going to take Effie and rearrange it for something. I mean, we don't look at the depth of what that's there and go, hey, there's more to this than just.
Yes. How beautiful her piece. I played it the other night. The first couple of phrases, I was really, really flustered because there was
Mm-hmm.
some stuff going on backstage. But then I was like, you know what? Fuck this shit. And I just let loose. And it's some of the best playing I've ever done.
Right.
And ironically, it's when the high E flat starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I might have missed one little thing from there to the end. And it was just like, it was great. Um, and when you were talking about Song for Carol, it kind of reminds me of you stop. It kind of reminds me of how beautiful.
Yeah, it's the same exact sort of thing. Like I had Chris Vivio come to Campbell and he played How Beautiful. And there's a lot of similarities there between those two in a lot of how they approach it. So and look, there's nothing wrong with being compared to Alec Wilder. I just hope that we treat her better than we've treated Alec Wilder in the last, and remember that they're like, I just don't want her to become another like blip in the radar of, well, she did some stuff and now we're on to, whoever the new hot thing is going to be in the tuba community.
I don't think that she will. Give me just a second.
You're good.
If I had children, I imagine it's probably like this. So I thought about locking myself in the basement, but they'll find a way down there. Um, between Gail Robertson, Travis Scott, and me, we'll be fine. She'll be fine.
I hope so. And I think it will be fine. I just,
And
it's, go ahead.
even if like I have been trying to get a tuba job, um, getting this doctorate finished will help a lot. But man, there's like 100 dudes just waiting, just like I am. And even if I never get an academic job or a professional, like a job that to play that pays me, a living, I'm still gonna do this. Um, and I think the academic job will come. It'll come when the time is right. And we've got to get some people to retire and die. Retire or die.
Right.
Because they are not retiring and they are not dying. um, but no, her music is it's gonna live on, and that's what she wanted
Right.
was because I asked her, I said, what do you want your musical legacy to be? And she said, or what I think at first I asked her, what do you think your musical legacy is? And she said, well, I can't really answer that because basically history will write it. And she wound up saying, if I had to pick my legacy and what I wanted it was, is for my music to still be played. And
Right.
So that I don't think is going to be a problem at all.
I, I hope it's not going to be a problem either. I don't think it would be. Um, it's just, do we keep it? You know how people get in this world, right? It's
Mhm.
like, oh, this is the great hot craze. It gets commissioned, gets played for a little bit, and goes away. Right. And our community is real bad about that. Because rather than celebrating what we have, we try to commission something that's going to be the next great. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And, some, I think that's because we've always been the underdog stepchildren of the solo world. So I feel like there's definitely a push from a certain age group to always do something new. And I think if you have one brand new piece per recital and you do two recitals a year, I think you are more than fulfilling your role as a tuba advocate. Um, and it is obviously it's very important to still keep creating and growing and to not just commission people that are established, but to commission the kid that you went to school with at UMKC. I had an undergraduate write me a piece a few years ago. It was one of the hardest damn pieces I've ever played in my life, but there was some beautiful stuff that came out of that, and it only has like 30 some views on YouTube, but um, the problem with it is the accessibility for the pianist.
right.
My pianist when I was there was the pianist with Kansas City Symphony, so he could play anything. Like the first time I heard him play, I'm like, oh, oh shit, I gotta practice. um, uh, and he struggled with it, and but that's something that Carl and I talked about was, hey, you know, this is Dan. Obviously, Dan is wonderful. The layman pianist can't play this. And you know we just got to keep moving forward, but she's not going anywhere.
That's good.
Yeah, she's not. But
So, random aside on that, and then I had something else I was going to mention on that related. But did you know a guy named Steve Landis when you were at UMKC? He was a comp doctoral student.
so I know the name. I never had any direct interactions with him, but I see him on people you may know on Facebook all the
Okay.
time. Yeah.
So Steve's a real good buddy of mine from North Carolina. That he's written some cool tuba stuff. I didn't know if you two had run into each other when you were in school.
I think he wrote so Breland Anderson.
Yep.
I think she did an album of brand new commissions for tuba, and I believe he did one of them.
Correct.
And if I'm remembering correctly, it was tuba in chamber settings, not just tuba solo, because we did. I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically like this very minimalistic piece that was really cool. It was really hard. The texture, the compose. I actually just the kid that composed it just composed a piece for tuba and EDM.
Oh, nice.
So I'm gonna do that on a lecture recital. I still haven't done my damn lecture recital, so I'm gonna do that after this is done. But so I was like, hey, do you got anything for tuba and EDM? He was like, because he's been getting into EDM, and he was like, yes, I will get you something. He had me something like within 2 weeks.
Cool.
But he wrote stuff. He wrote a piece for her.
Cool.
It was cool, and I've always tried to find where can I buy Breland's album because she had it like actually, where you can buy it. I don't know where you can buy it.
Yeah, I have to reach out because I haven't talked to her in a while because she talked to me about with Steve about it because he wrote me a unaccompanied thing that's like Zappa, but like a band, like Zappa meets Bandcamp kind of stories.
Okay.
So like there's some like you get to choose which order you play through stuff and like how to improvise to get from one thing to another. Another ones you got to take your horn apart and make like farting noises that come out when you push a valve down and stuff, like
There you go.
yep. So But the other thing about the commission piece. So this is just nothing to do with what you're doing on this project, but this is just a bitch from an older guy here. Imagine what would happen if for 1 year, ITEA, instead of doing all these like, give this person more money here, we do this here, or whatever they do with stuff, said, we're putting a fundraising campaign together to get John Adams, insert your like super top level
John Mackey.
John Mackey, anything like that. Commission concert, concerto, like something that's really going to elevate like if we're going to complain about our art form, like get a big name to like put something out there. And we kind of had that opportunity with Gene and the Chicago Symphony, and they chose John Stevens.
Yeah.
But like, it's just a complaint from an old guy, and I keep saying it, and
I was just kind of invited to do Gail started a diversity commission last fall.
Yep.
Late summer. And the guy that was, I can't remember his name, that was kind of in charge of it, kind of sat on it for a while. So now that James Gore, I think he says his last name Gourlay, but I always say Gourlay. James Gourlay is going to be president, I think, in June. He invited a handful of us to be on a diversity Zoom call last weekend, and I thought it was at 5 o'clock Central, but it was 5 o'clock Eastern, so I was an hour late. But we kind of talked, and so I'm hoping that maybe something that can come from that, because that's a really good idea. I've never thought about that. I know that Justin Benavidez had some chatter online about commissioning something from John Mackey. Even someone like Stephen Bryant, I think Stephen Bryant is kind of overshadowed by John Mackey a little bit, and I love both. I like John Mackey's compositions. I'm not in love with them.
Right.
Yeah. His Wine Dark Sea, I think it's some of the best writing for band that I've ever heard. And he does, like heavy rock really well. Cool. But he does not understand the tuba. And I think something that if we were to challenge him to understand the tuba, then it might change the way that we get to play his band pieces. So.
Truth. But something like that would be far better for the grow. Like that was Harvey's. Like, so my dissertation's all on the history of the organization.
Really? Okay.
Showing how my main focus was on how the journal supported the original mission statement of the organization.
Okay.
And the problem, go ahead.
Is the mission statement still the same?
It's changed slightly, but which we talked about a little in there. But the big thing that Harvey always was trying to push on the new work side was like, yeah, it's important to do your local people, but the organization really should push to do a massive thing, like a Penderecki, a John Adams. These were people after his time, but like, a Goodbye to Lena, like a concerto for orchestra and tuba with Goodbye to Lena, or Chen Yi, or somebody of those kind of like super high levels of stuff to go, this art form is going to push forward, because that's like having been in the professional tuba world, for a while now. Hey, you're going to play a solo with the orchestra. Cool. Well, I don't know who that is. I don't know who Barbara York is. I mean, it's cool, but like, can you play the John Williams? Can you play the Vaughn Williams? Can you play like, it's hard to get something because there isn't that name out there. And now, we've got the Doherty, which is like a good move in that direction, but Michael Doherty's a good name. It's a big name, but it's not that kind of big name.
Yeah. That's a wonderful piece. I've never played it. It's a wonderful piece of music.
Yeah, it's a cool piece. But like, I think something would really, I think that would be like beyond beneficial to elevating the art form. And that's just old. Like, I'm not that old. I'm 40, but I feel like I'm old
Yeah.
and complaining about stuff because I've been harping on it for 15 years. Like, it's great. Why we have more John Stevens? We're going to commission John Stevens to do stuff because he's John Stevens. It's great. We don't need more.
Yeah.
You know, we should
Yeah.
go out. The organization should be going after big name, big name. Okay, you don't want to do it? Cool. Big name. Who you want to do it? Cool.
Yeah. And that now that you say that, I don't think that there's any one tuba player, with the exception of maybe Mike Lynch, that could afford to commission John Mackey or someone like him to do that. There's Omar Thomas, who is,
Right.
you know, he's getting to that level, and it's because of John Mackey just brought him in. And yeah.
Yeah, it's just and like, you know, that was the thing with that. Like, the cool thing is once people started picking up on Barbara's stuff, it just like that machine took care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like maybe if you did an Omar Thomas, there'd be 5 more Barbara Yorks.
Yeah.
That they would see what that could, like, oh my God, what is, you know, and then there's something cool comes from it.
Yeah, it's amazing because anytime I play a recital that isn't at UMKC, even when I was in Pittsburgh, there was always some old person. I didn't know the tuba could do that.
Right.
And the other night, we did a faculty recital in Coffeyville, and I had like everyone's like, I didn't know the tuba could do that, and I'm like, yep. Looks like I'm failing at my job, so I'm gonna. If I'm there next year, I'm trying to find a K-12 position so I can be with Topher. Then I'm gonna make it a point to do a recital a semester. So